Good morning, everyone. I'm Liz Larson, and I am the lead for the Military Spouse Economic Empowerment Zone program at Hiring Our Heroes. I'm excited to be here as your moderator for today's discussion. And one of the primary ways that we affect change at Hiring Our Heroes is through our grassroots engagement, working inside communities to educate, raise awareness, and create pathways for career growth. Working together with public, private, and nonprofit leaders, we are able to significantly increase employment opportunities for military spouses and create talent pipelines for employers. The three cornerstones of our plan are the Military Spouse Economic Empowerment Zones, which develop workforce solutions for military spouses in their local community through collaboration with government, industry, and other nonprofit partners. The Military Spouse Professional Networks provide military spouses with career development and networking opportunities in their local military communities around the world. And the newest piece, the Military Spouse Fellowship Program, connects military spouses with exclusive on-the-job training. Today, I'm honored to be joined by members from the San Antonio community who each play pivotal roles in advancing military spouse employment opportunities. So we have a few questions lined up for our panelists, but I would encourage you, if you do have questions, you can use the Q&A feature on the Zoom platform. So panelists, will you please introduce yourselves and briefly share a bit about you, your background, and your connection to Hiring Our Heroes? So Grant, I'm going to start with you.
Hey, good morning, Liz. How are you? Meredith, all the panelists from San Antonio, it's nice to see you again. It's a great community we get to participate in. So my name is Grant Hegner. I'm from Booz Allen, and I'm the San Antonio MC's chair. As an Air Force veteran with a spouse who also served, I'd like to thank Hiring Our Heroes for putting this together. We know that what you do makes a difference, and I'm thankful to be healthy and included in today's webinar. Particularly from, with the group that's here from Mill City, USA, and the great state of Texas. And would like to also just say hello to all those in the audience and thank you for your service and commitment to the military spouse and the initiatives that help them out.
Thank you, Grant. Serafina.
Technically challenged here. Well, good morning, everybody. Happy to be here. My name is Serafina De Los Sanos. I'm the executive director for the 502nd Force Support Group at Joint Base San Antonio that comprises Lackland Randolph and Fort Sam Houston. And I work our organization works very heavily in the transition and military family space. And we're happy to partner with the Hiring Our Heroes and Military City USA to ensure that we're doing everything we can to prepare our families and transitioning service members for their new normal. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Debbie Clark. I work with the City of San Antonio in the Office of Military Veterans Affairs. I came onto this position as a Hiring Our Heroes corporate fellow, and I'm very excited for the opportunity to continue giving back.
Awesome, thank you. And Victoria Harvey.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Victoria Harvey. I am the program manager for the Military Spouse Fellowship Program in both San Antonio and Dallas. And I have 7 other counterparts across the U.S. Along with being the program manager, I am also a military spouse of 11 years. I am tied to an Air Force member here at JBSA in San Antonio. And I actually started off with Hiring Our Heroes as a volunteer in the Military Spouse Professional Network. So if we have any spouses out there, do please join those networks. They're amazing. Actually, our speaker, Kelly Welsh, will talk all about that. But get involved. It's a great program. Thank you so much for letting me be here.
Great, Victoria. And speaking of MSPN, Kelly, will you introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kelly Welsh. I'm one of the volunteer co-leads for the Hiring Our Heroes Joint Base San Antonio Military Spouse Professional Network, or MSPN. I volunteer along with my co-lead, Dr. Cindy Inkpen. I'm a military spouse, and I'm also a licensed clinical social worker. I currently work for the Bexar County Mental Health Authority. I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. And Grant, I'm going to start with you with a question about Booz Allen Hamilton. As a large international company, what's the impact of local community engagement on Booz Allen Hamilton's recruiting and their retention efforts?
Yeah, thanks, Liz. So, we all recognize that military spouse employment and underemployment is a national problem. And we know that, those require unique and local solutions. And so Booz Allen is really committed, not just nationally, but we're also committed to doing MC's chairs in other locations like San Diego, Tampa, and San Diego, right? Similar to how we operate in the San Antonio area. And so, we have military spouses located around the globe, and we know that they relocate regularly, right? I'm sure as many either, on this panel or in this audience may have done in the past and probably expect to do in the future. So, while we recognize that championing change at the national level, we also recognize that, and so at the national level, we were able to partner with MOA to get some language added to the National Defense Authorization Act to support teleworking options for military spouses. We know that so much of what the military spouse employment issues, a lot of it can be tackled on the ground and hopefully through, things like, or solutions like teleworking. Connecting with military spouses for their next project or for the team that they might relocate to, we're able to do that at a much more ground level kind of base, right? We understand that you can't just kind of blast out a huge email to the CEO or all 27,000 people and look for your next opportunity, or really help your team find the next opportunity. You've got to do that by reaching out to people that you've built a relationship and a network with, in your local community. And so internally to Booz Allen, what that looks like is a military spouse network, and that's comprised of hundreds of military spouses and leaders from around the globe and across the country. And externally, what that looks like is networks created through similar programs like HOH with the Military Spouse Professional Network, MCs, and then the fellowship program. And it relates through that fellowship program that we think is a great example, and we were very excited to be part of, or we're very excited to be the first corporate sponsor of the Military Spouse Fellowship Program, because we know that no matter how much national advocacy that we do, it really comes down to the local and regional focus, where you make the connections between the military spouses and the employers, so that they can agree on what the mutual benefits are and what how they can grow together with the relationships. And we know that that's a local community engagement that's needed, that supports both our recruiting and then also our retention efforts.
I was muted. Thank you, Grant. And now I have a question for Serafina. Serafina, would you talk about the tremendous collaboration between JBSA, the city, the county, our local employers, and all of the service organizations who just put so much effort into improving military spouse employment in Military City, USA?
Let's see, I am unmuted. Okay, well, thank you, Liz, for that. I just want to say that, we're very fortunate to be here in the city of San Antonio, who, it is Military City, USA for a reason. Lots of history here with Fort Sam Houston and Lackland and Randolph. But I would say that our journey into developing collaboration and partnerships with the city of San Antonio really began back in 2014 for Joint Base San Antonio. We became a joint base in 2010, and we started we implemented the public-public public-private P4 initiative, where we started seeking ways to partner with the community and seeing where we had gaps in our resources and where we could ask for collaboration. So we've been working with that in that process since 2014, and we were fortunate. I was fortunate enough to connect with the San Antonio Area Foundation. At that time, a lady named Melissa Beach, and she had the Military and Veteran Community Council, the MVCC, and that was an already established collaboration. And we really started connecting with them. And, you know, from my perspective, from the Joint Base perspective, I was looking for force multipliers for our military and family readiness centers. Or if you're Army, it's your ACS. If you're Air Force, it's your Airmen and Family Readiness Centers. And if you're Navy, you just kind of fall in on both of those. But the bottom line is, you know, we knew that we had more work and more need than we had resources. And so from a military installation perspective, Joint Base was, I think, leading the effort in terms of not being afraid to go out and collaborate. And I think a lot of times as military installations, we're always afraid of, oh, is it legal? Is it ethical? Is it moral, et cetera? And at the end of the day, you know, you have to get past that fear of going out and partnering with the community. So we started identifying, first we started working with our transitioning service members, and we adopted some best practices that were already in place from the Army at Joint Base Lewis McChord. And so we brought those to San Antonio, and really it's pounding the pavement. It's going out there and shaking hands with folks, learning who the nonprofits are, knowing who those non-government agencies are, knowing who is out there providing services and how you can collaborate. And it's one entity at a time. So back in about 4 years ago, I started with 4 people. You know, it was the USO Pathfinder program, Goodwill Industries, it was the Bexar County, and we started getting around our table and figuring out, you know, how can we partner? And then we started bringing in other people. Hiring Our Heroes, for example, came to us and wanted to do our transition summit, and we started there. Well, as a result of Hiring Our Heroes coming to San Antonio to do transition summits with us here at San Antonio at JBSA, it then evolved into implementing the Hiring Our Heroes Fellowship Program. And that worked so well, you know, thanks again to some of the folks that are on the ground. Example, Carla Miller, who's been absolutely a tireless advocate for transitioning service members. And from there, you know, we saw how good that was, and other people started gravitating towards Joint Base San Antonio, saying, "Hey, we hear you're open for business, and we hear you're wanting to collaborate and partner," and that's how we did it. I mean, we started partnering with companies, local employers here, developing memorandums of agreement. You know, started advocating for networking events at first for transitioning service members. But as we were succeeding with the transitioning service member, we started now, you know, going into the spouses. How could we have military spouses? So we took what we learned from the transitioning program and how to partner there. And from a JBSA perspective, we started implementing that with spouses. So now we're building collaborations for the spouses to have more resources. So we brought Hiring Our Heroes. You know, they stood up their military empowerment zone, and again, you know, credit to Liz Larson, who's a military spouse and, you know, always very active with us in every capacity that you worked. But it takes I guess it takes passion, and you have to have the initiative to go there, and you have to be able to pound the pavement, and I'd like to say, to go and do the gripping and the grinning, to meet or to tell organizations about what is needed inside the installation for military spouses, transitioning service members, and I add dependent children too, whether it's employment, because we're hearing from spouses, they need employment. we're hearing from spouses now during this COVID-19 crisis that not only do they need employment, they also need some sort of mental well-being programs, or they need, help with their children that are being homeschooled, etc. So there is so many areas where we need to partner with the community, and we're always so thankful that they reach into us so that we can bring them inside the gate, and we can ensure that we're providing all the services that we need. And I will end by saying that one of the things that we tell our staff inside the gate is not to fear partnerships. Partners are not there to take away their jobs. They're there to, as service force multipliers, and enhance what we're doing and fill in gaps. There's more than enough. There's more than enough of a requirement that we're never going to have enough help. So that's basically the story of how we have kind of been going through the years. It didn't happen overnight. It took a lot of hard work. And I'm happy to report that, well, here we are, right? Military City USA, and sharing our good best practices. So thank you, and over to you, Liz, unless you have a follow-on question.
No, I want to thank you personally for what you do. And you really brought the entire collaboration together. And I can't stress enough how unique it is and how important this collaboration is in San Antonio. So thank you for what you do every single day. Thanks. And I have a question for you, Deb. Serafina touched on the fellowship program, and it was launched in San Antonio because the city pursued this program and took the lead in garnering the community support. So I have two questions for you. Why did the city feel that this was so important? And what steps did you take to build support with the local businesses?
Thanks, Liz. I think it's important to note first that the military is the #1 economic impactor here in San Antonio, and that's the whole reason my office exists. We have 3 efforts that we focus on, and spouse employment ties directly into all of those. We want to retain our current military missions, and for that, readiness is a key factor, which is affected by retention of the service members, and spouse employment is a top 4 decision factor for that. Additionally, we want to retain our veterans here, and if we have the military spouses incorporated into the local community and they're happy here, gainfully employed, and proud of what they're doing, we're more likely to retain that entire service family. And then third, we like to advocate for additional missions to continue to grow our military population. For that, quality of life is a key factor, and unemployment rates feed directly into that, of course. So it's just holistically a good program, but we can particularly support this because of the metrics that go behind it, and being able to have that takeaway to take back to our city council and our community members to show that success in those numbers. For the second question about how we build the support here, it really does help that I was a fellow myself, because then my leadership understands that this is a successful program that we want to see incorporated more around. They asked me to go and advocate for this program, and having come from it myself, it's very easy to do, to highlight its strengths. So I've linked up with our economic development team to see which businesses are looking at relocating to San Antonio when they do come here, and finding out who is headquartered here as well. We've been trying to reach out into groups to the various chambers of commerce. There's more than 12 here in San Antonio. And then also individual outreach through letters of support. We've sent, I believe, 50 so far, and have another 100 to send once we're back in the office with a printer. So we'll be getting on that. But just continuing to spread the message and being able to personally speak about it, to explain the basics of the program, and then connect them with Victoria once they hear some success stories and understand, because that integration is really key. And we want to give people a mechanism to not just say that they're military city and that they support it, but to actually show that support.
Okay, I got disconnected. I'm having connective issues. Did you finish your answer to the question? Can
Yes,
you hear me?
I just finished. Thank you.
Okay, perfect timing then. Victoria, as the fellowship program just recently really got started in San Antonio, can you talk about how it's been received in the community, and can you possibly give us some great success stories you can share?
Of course, I would love to. I am so honored to be part of this program. I'm a very proud military spouse. My husband says I probably bleed blue more than he does. So I'm just so excited that programs like this exist. And I had heard about the collaboration going on in San Antonio prior to having this position. They're known as our Tuesday morning meetings that Serafina leads. So I've been so lucky because this program, which started in September of 2019, so we're just starting our 8th month here in San Antonio, was so well received. So well received. And I really have to give so much credit to my colleague, Carla Miller, who does our corporate fellowship program that helps transitioning service members. She'd already been on the ground for years, had established so many great connections. So it was a very easy transition for me. I knew a lot of people in the community already. Serafina opened up the doors for me to attend our Tuesday morning meetings, and I have just loved those because the collaboration that happens is all these helping agencies, and of course all the base players and companies that are very interested in hiring military members and now military spouses. So just that cross collaboration, being able to speak together every Tuesday has been wonderful. And so this program started in September, so a little less than 8 months ago. And we started off with 4 host companies, and they were USAA, ELLC, First Command, and the City of San Antonio. And we started off with 12 military spouse fellows, and we were just so excited at that launch. Well, that has been able to grow to now over 30 companies are looking at our resume releases. So it keeps growing and growing. And honestly, that's thanks to the partnership of everybody you see on your screen. We have the base pushing it out, which is wonderful, all the different helping agencies that are out there. The city, like Debbie was just sharing, they are sending out letters to the community, outreaching for us as well, which has been an incredible partnership. Our MCs team that is here in San Antonio, I love our team here, and Grant has done such a great job leading it. But the whole team there, not only are they advocating the program within their own companies, but they're going out within the community and sharing why it's a good program and why it's worth hiring military spouses. And then our military spouse professional network. In San Antonio, we have over 1,800 members. So it's a great way to reach out to our military spouse community and let them know that this program exists to help them find meaningful employment. So we've been very excited. We've had over 20 fellows so far here in San Antonio. We look forward to growing that number. I love speaking to people that have been here a while, people that are PCSing to San Antonio, and they already are hearing about the program and trying to hit the ground running, which is really great. And just really, honestly, the warm reception has been incredible, and I really look forward to continuing our partnership with everybody. So thank you all so much for your incredible support.
Perfect. Okay, now Kelly, as the volunteer MSP and lead for JBSA, can you talk about how our 3 programs work together to create opportunities for military spouses and their employment goals in San Antonio? And also want to ask you about those spouses who are in an area maybe where they don't have our programs, all 3 of our programs. So what resources would you suggest for them?
Yes, absolutely. So I feel really fortunate to be a volunteer co-lead for an MSPN in a community that has all of these programs, because we know that isn't the case everywhere. So through my MSPN lens, our main focus is to be inclusive and support all military spouses, whether they're active, retired, separated, divorced spouses. So anyone who has or will experience an impact on their professional career because of the military lifestyle. And we aim to do this primarily in two ways. So first, to provide professional development targeted to the unique experience of being a military spouse. And second, to provide networking experiences. We do that chiefly through our monthly workshops or events that we coordinate here in San Antonio. Since we know that 80% of jobs across industries come from relationships, military spouses have a huge disadvantage when they face rebuilding a professional network every time they move. And today's military spouses have an unemployment rate that's 4 times the nation's unemployment rate. So partnering with these other programs in San Antonio has really helped us with our mission so much. So a big way we work together is each summer we conduct a planning meeting where we map out all of our events for the coming year. So Liz, who was the previous MC's chair, participated in our planning session, and she was able to help us connect with so many local employers who were eager to get involved, whether it be providing us with a meeting space, offering mock interviews, teaching a workshop. She actually connected us with Grant, the current chair, who conducted a fantastic workshop for us on virtual interviewing techniques. We've really found that education and training is only one piece of the puzzle. So in order for spouses to find meaningful employment, we really need to have engagement from local employers who have job openings, are looking to hire spouses, and are really invested. So that's where MCs is a tremendous resource for us. And we're already looking forward to partnering with Grant this summer as we plan our next year of workshops. And then with the Military Spouse Fellowship Program, as Victoria mentioned, there's this incredible direct pathway for spouses to get paid experience in a local organization that's military spouse friendly, which is such a huge opportunity for spouses in our network. And we're also very lucky to have Victoria serve on our board, so she's really accessible to the spouses in our network. And to answer your questions about resources for spouses in an area without an MSPN, so my first recommendation would be to look at creating one. So we're completely volunteer run. There's currently 55 MSPN locations, and the best way to do this or explore this is to contact the HOH Military Spouse Program team at mspn@uschamber.com. I'm hoping Meredith can put that in the chat box for everyone. There's also a virtual MSPN group that's available to spouses in any state. So that can be found on Facebook by searching Virtual HOH Military Spouse Professional Network. And outside of this, another great place to start is by utilizing installation support. So the Military Family Readiness Centers have a lot of programming and supportive services related to employment available to spouses. They also offer short-term counseling, which can be really helpful with the emotional aspects of coping with unemployment. And there's some wonderful nonprofit organizations as well, many that operate across state lines. So we have Onward to Opportunity, the USO Pathfinders program. Microsoft has a new Military Spouse Technology Academy, and there's programs like MySeco that offer free LinkedIn Premium for a year for military spouses who are newly PCSing. So there's some great resources out there that are ready to help. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Kelly. And I enjoy working with you with Military Spouse Professional Network. Okay, Grant, I have a question for you about MCs. As you know, we have 3 pillars: hire, train, and advocate. And as the MC's chair, how are the professional network and the fellowship program integrated into these pillars? And Kelly has touched on that and Victoria's touched on that, but I'd like to get your perspective.
Thanks, Liz. So, many of you know that the MCs and the MSPN and the fellowship are kind of a local trifecta solution to military spouse employment. And so at 4 times, the national average, right, there's at least 2 sides to that solution. And so there's the military spouse side and the employer side. And really the MCs is what we consider to be kind of the employer side. And so, we've had a lot of great fortune to have Liz, right, lead our chair for really the first 2 years. and that's been significant and awesome. And so we recognize the charge and really the opportunity to kind of continue the work that she'd done, right? And so this year we set 4 goals, and they're not necessarily in any one order because we recognize that they all really need to happen in parallel, and then continuously build and then complement the successes of each of those. So the first one, really within our definition of advocacy, is to double the size of our employer contacts and our distro lists, right? And so a lot of that is inspired by Serafina and the partner group that that she really developed over time. And so it's also in great coordination, and thankfully under kind of Deb's guidance and leadership, right? I mean, she's done a phenomenal job, and really the goal is to continue that, and to really help her build that out, right? Because she's one person, many hands make a light lift. And so we recognize that if we can build that out, right, really what we're going to do is contribute to the MSPN network and their career searches, but then also build on potential fellowship hosts and sponsors, who we will then pass off to Victoria, right? And so we think that's a good way to continue moving forward. And so by domino effect, one of our second goals we think is going to be met by getting different businesses and encouraging them to join the 100K military spouse hiring movement, right? And then so if you consider that the advocacy and the hiring pieces are tied incredibly closely together, the goal is to really build off of the initiatives and to build off of the momentum that is gained to really support those fellowship initiatives. A third goal that we have is to support the MSPN in their annual training calendar, right? So, the MSPN did a phenomenal job last year, and they had a really aggressive training calendar set up that really covers all months of the year, minus a really nice break in the summertime. But we really have an obligation to support that from a business perspective, right? And to kind of honor what it is they're looking for. So the outreach is consistent and persistent. And San Antonio is as a major metropolitan area, with at least 4 installations separated by a good 20 miles or so, is a lot of ground to cover. And so it's important for us to think about what the MSPN is looking for by way of training, and really be considerate of the kind of the geography that they have to go to be able to get to that training, right? But then the other part to that training pillar, and really more on the MC side, is what do the employers need to know about, right? And what is it that we have an obligation to train them on, right? And so I think as we kind of move forward in building out our outreach, right, and seeing who can be involved in our working group and our partnerships, we'll know more from those employers to better be prepared and give them useful information, to be responsive, and to also be actionable, right, for all the things that MCs and the MSPN bring. And ultimately we recognize that the integration it's a continuous process of communication and inclusion, and then we'll just refine engagement based off of the data and the feedback that we get through those pillars. And I did want to mention also that one of our other goals was really to bring in and define leadership roles for the pillars. So, Deb, we have from an advocacy perspective, Kitty Meyer, we have from the MOA, who is the Alamo area chapter president, right? And she is kind of our training expert with a great background in human resources. And then we also have the Domingos, right? Ray and Samantha, and they are, I'm pretty sure they're a hiring pillar component, and they do phenomenal work locally, to continuously work with spouses and then employers to kind of work through any challenges that either organizations might have. So I think we've done a pretty good job with our goals, but arguably the year is young, and there's still a lot of outreach that has to happen over the next, over the next 8 to 9 months. And really, again, it just continues as the initiative needs to continue and grow.
Fantastic, Grant. Thank you. I am going to turn it over to Meredith Smith, our MSPN program manager, and she's going to we have some questions for the panelists. So I'm going to let you read those questions, Meredith. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Couple of questions. And so I think that these could be answered by different panelists. Some are probably more pointed toward the fellowship or toward MCs or MSPN. But one of the first questions is, how do we get companies to participate in the spouse HOH program that are not currently in the HOH network? And so I think this could be from the fellowship perspective or MSPN or MC's perspective. So Liz, I don't know who you want to direct that to.
Okay, I will open it up to who wants to take it.
Well, I don't mind starting. If you are a company that's not already tied to Hiring Our Heroes, that's okay. Email us, message us. We will just start that conversation right away. So our fellowship program is in 8 locations. We're in the Northern Virginia and DC area, Maryland, Tampa, Florida, Dallas, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, Colorado Springs, Colorado, San Diego, California, and Honolulu, Hawaii. So if your company has a footprint in those areas, please reach out to us. I did in the chat put the link to our fellowship program, and I can definitely put my email there as well. And just reach out to us and I can always point you in the right direction. But what's great about our program is it is free for host companies to host military spouse fellows. And it allows you a few weeks to see if it's a good fit for both you and that possible employee. So definitely, please take advantage of our program, get on board. And if a fellowship program isn't in your area, that's okay. Please still look at military spouses. Let military spouses know that you are a company that supports us, understands our skill set, and is willing to kind of look past I call them the Swiss cheese resumes sometimes, and join our 100K program. It's so simple. I think Meredith put it in the chat box. Just go ahead, put a pledge in there, say that you're a company that wants to hire military spouses. You'll be added to our list, and then military spouses can go to that list and see companies that value military spouses, and they aren't afraid of kind of hiding that fact. So those would just be some of the things I would recommend.
That's wonderful. And are you, is the spouse fellowship open to veteran spouses as well?
It is. So just like Kelly mentioned, in the eyes of Hiring Our Heroes, a military spouse is anybody that's ever worn the title of military spouse. So you can be tied to active duty member, veteran, separatee, retiree, active guard, reservist, divorce, as long as your life, especially your professional life, has been impacted by the military in some capacity, we are here for you. Absolutely.
Wonderful. So the next question is, this person says, as a recruiter for a large nationwide retailer and a military spouse myself, what tips would you give employers on how to begin and get company buy-in to support a fellowship or to get a fellowship started?
And I think Grant can probably talk on that, and Deb, you as well. So Grant, you want to go first, and then we'll throw it to Deb next.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, I think internally, we talked about the Military Spouse Network, right? One of the Booz Allen affinity groups. And, it really was like a grassroots initiative that really established that program, right? And it was people with a common vision who really wanted to make a change for the better. And so I think, it really starts, it has the potential to start at the employee level, right? But I think a very easy way to introduce programs like the fellowship, or working with an MCs, are very simply laid out in the MCs playbook, right, which are available right on the Hiring Our Heroes website. But then also there's a thought piece called the collective effort. And it's a workforce solution working group for the 21st century for military spouses that was co-chaired by the Second Lady. And so, between those two documents, it really lays out very easily some initiatives that corporations, large or small, and there's some things that they can execute very easily. To Victoria's point, where you can participate as a host company, right, and you can really get a sense for what the programs are about, and the commitment, right, is relatively easy, right, but the return on investment is likely significant for whichever company or corporation wants to participate. And so I'd offer those as kind of two or three really easy ways to start to get involved that could make significant and really immediate impact.
Wonderful. Liz, may I go ahead and ask another one?
Sure. Let's see. Deb, did you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I do. I wanted to say that if you could get some of the different leadership in these larger corporations together, the different roles. So if you have the leaders, get the HR, get the philanthropy or community relation groups, and then if there's a military advocacy group within the organization, getting them all to the table so they're all on board and have that buy-in right away is great. And then if you can bring along to the table data from a CSP program, if that's already in place in your area, or if not, showing the metrics from other regions for the hiring rates, and really explaining that this is a low risk, big win program. Thank you.
Fantastic. I think we can take the next question, Meredith.
Okay, I'm going to kind of combine two here. So the first part of this is what kind of a background does a spouse involved in a Hiring Our Heroes program typically look for? Is it management or IT or some other industry sector? And then the second one is really about the company involvement. And this person asks, how do companies in that work for the DoD contracting space utilize military spouses that don't have a clearance?
Okay, Grant, I'm going to call on you first for that one.
Yeah, so I think for the clearance part, I think that clearances, right, are only one part to what makes up a company, right, or a DoD contract service, right, and so not all things require clearances, and there are things that on the back end from a corporate side that really take a lot of support and staff, right. There's lawyers, and there's marketing, and there's communication strategists, and so I think it's really important to think about when you're looking for different positions, right? So one is the purpose and values and ethics of the company, but also recognize that company likely has uncleared positions, right? But then also uncleared positions that could impact, right, the Department of Defense or other federal agencies, right, where you don't always have to have clearance, and so. If anything, I think that's just the most important thing, is to recognize that the clearance is not really the end all be all for for government services, and Serafina, right, like just she's in her office, right, and I don't think that's a skiff. So right, that's just a great example of government people that don't work in secure facilities.
Great. Does anyone else want to add to that? Have any comments, thoughts from the
I'd
question?
love to add to that. So dealing with a lot of military spouses, I am always reminded at how diverse the military spouse community is. And so We actually do sometimes have military spouses that have clearances. A lot of military families are dual military, and maybe one of the spouses got out sooner, or maybe they're both retired. So definitely reach out to our different teams, and we can always help share different opportunities. And you may find individuals, if you have to have individuals with clearances, that we could send your way, like Grant shared. Also, if you have positions that don't require clearance, definitely please also consider military spouses. Military spouses as a whole are incredibly educated. Again, our military spouse fellowship program is new, but the pilot program did start in 2017, and we have had over 250 fellows in there. So we're starting to get some really good data points. And just from the fellowship side of the house, I believe it's 41% of our fellows have their bachelor's degrees, and 45% of them have a master's or higher. So we do have a very educated population, but that doesn't mean that every person there wants to be the next CEO or CFO of a company. We have individuals that are just coming out of school, or maybe took a break for a couple of years for different reasons, that are looking for entry-level jobs, or looking for mid-management jobs, the whole spectrum. So military spouses as a whole, you get all kinds of different backgrounds. So definitely whatever you have, put it out there, and we'd love a shot at possibly being that right candidate for you.
Awesome. We have some more questions. Does anybody else have anything to add to that? Sound good? All right. Meredith, if you'll give us another question.
Do federal and government agencies participate in the spouse program, or how are they involved in the spouse programs, whether it's MCs, or I think this person might be referring specifically to the fellowship?
So on the fellowship side, it's been mostly just companies and a few nonprofits that have joined us. We haven't been able to get any federal groups on, but maybe one day, which would be really great. But we do, I know, and Kelly, you can probably go on this a lot more. Some of our board members are part of the GS system and have given some great insight and are able to help our military spouse population through MSPN. So Kelly, if you wanted to talk about prior events that have been planned.
Yeah, sure. So separate from the fellowship program, we've had many events focused on federal employment, whether it's writing your federal resume or the federal interviewing process. And that's a common question that comes up in our Facebook group. So there are a lot of resources out there kind of ready to help and provide support if you're just looking for assistance with navigating that process, which we know is quite challenging.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. And I would say, because of the support Serafina gives her staff and all of us, that we have participation in all three of the programs from the various installations, Lackland, Randolph, and Fort Sam Houston. We have representation and support in all three of our programs for Hiring Our Heroes. I'm going to review that quickly. It's Military Spouse Economic Empowerment Zone we have in San Antonio, and we have 21 zones now designated to support military spouse employment, primarily through employer participation in our working groups, which Grant covered. Our military spouse professional networks, we have 60, I believe. Meredith, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think we added one recently, and they are all over the world. As Kelly mentioned, they are started by military spouses in their local military community wanting to improve spouse employment in their communities. And then our last program in San Antonio, and as Victoria mentioned, we have 8 locations. It's a new program. It's the Military Spouse Fellowship Program, helping spouses get on the job training, for a 6-week period, and which hopefully and mostly does lead to a position, an offer from the employer that they've done the fellowship with. So Meredith, I think we had a couple more questions.
We do, and the first one is, the local government in San Antonio is heavily involved with this effort. Can you talk about how they got involved at the beginning? And Serafina may have touched on this, but really we want to know how folks from other areas can have an idea on how to approach their local officials. Basically, if you don't have Military City USA, what does it look like to build support for these initiatives in other communities?
All right. Do I have Deb, you look like you're interested in that.
I don't have a lot of details on the original background, but I do know that the mayor pro tem for the city was in DC, who became aware of the unemployment rates of the military spouses. And I believe at that point we were already the first military spouse economic empowerment zone. So the advocacy message was already out there, and that's spread around. They decided to financially support a program, and already having the Hiring Our Heroes corporate fellowship program, having the strong metrics, it ended up being helping with this spouse fellowship program. And what really was key was that the program was already in that North Virginia, Maryland area where it was used as a proof of principle. So there was the local proof of principle with the CSP program, the spouse fellowship program already existing as a proof of principle, and then having that advocacy network through the MESI here already. It all came together and involved MOUs and everything else and getting it through city council. But as I was explaining in the beginning, because it affects the military's readiness and because it allows us to retain those veterans and it increases the quality of life, there wasn't any pushback on the program. Everybody was very supportive.
Yes.
And if I may add, I think going back to what I said earlier, JBSA invited Hiring Our Heroes to come to San Antonio. Hiring Our Heroes partnered with Joint Base San Antonio, and we opened our gates to all of these corporate partners to come in and work with us. And because of the success of Hiring Our Heroes, because of the success of our career skills program, because of the installations outreach to the community and through the P4 program that I spoke about earlier, it begins with the installation, inviting entities like Hiring Our Heroes, Onward to Opportunity, and all of the employer partners to come and partner with the installation. And then, of course, that segued into, not just because really the P4 program from an installation perspective is not just on the human capital, as I like to call it. It evolves into many, many other areas of partnership, whether it's infrastructure or utilities or whatnot. It's not just a human capital partnership. So again, it's the leadership of the installation, kind of educating the city, the municipalities right outside their gate on what is needed, and then the installation allowing access to programs like Hiring Our Heroes. Because at the end of the day, if the installation is, shuts up tight and doesn't let anybody in, then guess what? Then the spouses or or transitioning service members or so forth, they're left to go out and start finding programs on their own. Whereas we, as the installation, allow Hiring Our Heroes to partner right alongside with us, come into our centers, talk to our staff, put the word out. The same thing with all of our nonprofits and non-governmental agencies and governmental agencies and employer partners. We give them access. And if you can pass, if you can get a background check and you come in the gate, we'll let you come in the gate and partner with us. So that's what it takes. It's a collaborative effort. You know, you could have a municipality doing all these great things, but if the installation doesn't allow that access, guess what? It's harder for service members and spouses and families to go out there and find those resources. So it's a collaborative effort. But again, if I have any installations or anyone that is out there that is located outside a military installation, you have to start with a handshake, and you have to start with you know, letting people know, letting the installations know that not to be afraid to open up their gates. And at the end, and then so we want to be. I want, you know, our hope is that Joint Base San Antonio is leading the way for Department of Defense military installations to say it's okay, don't fear, you know, folks wanting to come help, because at the end of the day, it's what's best for military families. So I'm very adamant about that, and yes, you know, I take pride in the fact that I'm kind of like the leader of the band, but I don't do the work. The work is done by Hiring Our Heroes and our staff in the military and family readiness centers. All I do is just kind of keep the peace. But anyway, over to you all.
So we have one more question, and it seems like the San Antonio community has rallied around this effort and is really working to push the needle in the right direction. And the question is, what is next for the community in your efforts to continue to break down barriers and put up opportunity for military spouses? And this could really go to anyone, but I think probably the city, and what's next for you, Victoria and Kelly and Grant?
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead, Grant.
Go, Kelly, you got it.
I was just going to say quickly, I think for us, a big goal is to really change the perception of hiring military spouses. So a point I really want to highlight is that military spouses are no more transient than the majority of the American workforce today. The Bureau of Labor Statistics actually show that the average tenure for an employee, a millennial employee who's in the 25 to 34 age group, is 2.8 years. So the stigma around military spouses moving frequently really shouldn't be a deterrent for hiring spouses. So I'm hoping kind of that will be a big perception change here in San Antonio, and I think it's already happening, and hopefully will continue, thanks to all the work that everyone in this group is doing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the ways forward, right, and what's next is, you know, we have to be considerate of best practices that places like Tampa put on, right, and places like San Diego or Nova, or just, you know, what happens across the nation and how organizations are responsive and successful, right? And then we have to implement those into the you know, what fits regionally, right? Because it really is that ground level and kind of grassroots initiative. And so, you know, I know that, you know, working with Serafina, right, she has a goal, I think, through the P4 to really focus and be strategic about, you know, how that continues, right? So that there's value and like, you know, in the community, right? And so that it's purposeful in its intent, because that's important. And I think we have to be realistic in what that looks like, and we need to listen to it, right, and be appropriately responsive so that we can have the largest impact, right? And so a lot of that's driven by data and relationships, and it's just, I think it's a continuing process and effort.
And I want to add one more thing that I'm always adamant about, and those of you that know me well, but you know, when you, as municipalities or cities, or, you know, wherever they might be hearing us now in military installations, you must be collaborative. You know, if Hiring Our Heroes is not the answer for someone, then you need to pass them on to other organizations that may help. And that's one thing that, you know, one of the things that I'm always insistent upon is we must have no competition among entities, that, you know, we're all here to help everyone's, whether it's spouses or transitioning service members or children. So the issue is, if Hiring Our Heroes, maybe if Victoria touches a spouse or someone, and that Hiring Our Heroes is not the program for that spouse, then our expectation from an installation is that Hiring Our Heroes may say, you know what, Onward to Opportunity has an opportunity for you, or Microsoft has an opportunity for you. It's not to be, I want our goal here is to make sure that there's collaboration among employers, collaboration among organizations. So while, Hiring Our Heroes is leading the effort in so many ways, that's my expectation for here and other municipalities. Don't compete with each other. We're all here to help and link arms, right? So
I definitely would love to piggyback off of that.
Yes.
And Serafina has been so great, again, starting these Tuesday meetings where we can collaborate, and it could be done through Zoom, phone calls, in person. But because of that, all the different helping agencies do work together. Even if we might offer very similar things, well, you know what? Share the love, put it out there. We might not be the right program for everybody. And I can't tell you the number of emails that I receive weekly from the different partners that we have in San Antonio saying, hey, I've got somebody that could really take advantage of your program. Talk to them. And we're doing that all the time. And it's through companies, it's through nonprofits. So definitely that collaboration piece is massive, and to just continue growing that collaboration, adding more people to the table, and just network amongst each other so that we can help the greater population.
Okay, I can't believe it, but we are out of time. So I want to thank all of you all very much. It's obvious the collaboration we have in San Antonio is incredible. We have questions. If we haven't answered them, we will get to all of them. And again, thank you very much.